Teaching on sound biblical financial principles yesterday. And we wanted to come and finish that lesson today. I know this is a big, big issue. There are a lot of people who say, man, I want to serve God. I want to do something for God, but they're in bondage financially. And finances can either be a great blessing or they can be a great burden. And I hope that you'll give your heart to Him as the next 45 minutes. He's going to come, give us some real teaching on finances, some biblical principles. And Brother Jason, thrilled to have you. Let's welcome him again this morning.
Well, we're going to do our best to get through this today anyways. That'll be good. How many of you realize the Bible talks a lot about money? You read that in there? There's a lot in the Bible about money. Brother Wallace, that has been just fantastic last night and this morning. We were talking yesterday. It's amazing how small the world is. Chris Lace from our church in Colorado Springs says, are y'all like interwoven some way or another? Everybody knows somebody, and somebody got married to somebody, and somebody's related to somebody. And I said, it's just kind of, you stick around long enough, it seems like that happens. Matter of fact, my wife grew up, and we served before the church that we're currently serving in now. We were in Springfield, Tennessee at the South Haven Baptist Church for 8 years, and I'll tell you probably a little bit more about that tomorrow in the layman session. But very interesting, when that church was looking for a pastor, and they were trying to call that pastor, the man who is now the pastor for 21 years, Brother Frank Gagliano, was on staff at Brother Wallace's church and was his assistant pastor. And what's even more odd is that John Anderson's dad is the one who knew he might be available. And so John Anderson's dad called and told him that there was a man at Brother Wallace's church, and he'd be a good man to start pastoring that church. And so he has and done, and the church has grown and done well. Brother Wallace is the one who recommended you here as well, too. Well, man, he's just like a little Baptist matchmaker, isn't he? I'll tell you what. So, praise the Lord. Good stuff. So, open your Bible, if you will, to the book of Matthew. And I've got a number of things that I don't think we'll be able to get through everything, so I'm kind of going to skip around a little bit here today. But yesterday we did look at a number of different things and started in the book of Hebrews and talked about living within your means and kind of having some different things when you're trying to live within your means and having a financial checkup. We talked also about not creating unnecessary bills and didn't get quite all the way through that. Let me just say this. One thing that amazes me, and I'm sure that you all are much brighter than this and you don't ever have this problem, but everywhere I've lived, since the adventation of Starbucks, money has just started disappearing like crazy. How many of you, is where you live, Starbucks is the coffee place to go? How many of you, anybody have Pete's Coffee here? Or Caribou Coffee, or Seattle's Best, or what else is it around here? Oh my word, it's got to be. If Brother Stancel's involved, I knew donuts would have to be involved one way or another. Praise the Lord. So it is good stuff. I'll tell you what, they have those Dunkin' Donuts K-Cups, and man, I'll tell you what, I have not grown up yet. You're going to find this hard to believe, but I'm in church, and I won't lie about it. I have not had a full cup of coffee in my life. Can you believe that? Isn't that horrible? I know Brother Stancil just sitting here going, this was a bad decision to have him come. He's like, have one of mine right now. I've tasted it. I've never actually had a full cup, so I haven't grown up, I guess. I don't know what the deal is there, but some pretty good stuff. Matthew chapter 6, in verse 19, I just want to give you some scriptures here. We'll just buzz through them, things you can write down, and hopefully, just like you do in any preaching, you can go and take those. As we get into that, I would encourage you, as young people, watch where your money goes. We left off with that yesterday. Don't create unnecessary bills. It may not be a bill, but how many of you, and there's nothing wrong with it. You just, we'll have an altar call later, I'm sure, but how many of you get at least one Starbucks or something like that a week? Oh, you're lying to me. Raise your hands. You know you do. Nobody drinks coffee here. Praise the Lord. How many of you go out to eat at least once a week? Oh, glory to God. How many of you probably go out to eat, and I mean fast food, I mean a full dinner, I mean a full sit-down, I mean Panera, McDonald's, you name it, at least 3 times a week? How many of you likely probably do it at least 5 times a week? Okay. How many of you, there's 3 meals a day, so how many of you probably do that, whether it's a snack, fast food, a restaurant, maybe 10 times a week? A number of you. I tell you what, it's one thing we've got to watch. I tell you, it goes fast. How many of you have ever gone through the process? Yeah, all the men are just looking at the women right now and saying, nope, she's not the right one. Nope, she's not the right one. Can't afford her, can't afford her, praise the Lord. The women are doing the same thing. They're just being quiet about it. So it is amazing. That money will just go. I have people all the time tell me, they say, man, what have I got to do? I just don't have the money to do it. It's very simple. I should have said this yesterday, but if it's not working, you have one of two things you can do. You can cut your expenses, or you can make more money. That's it. That's the only options there are. And it's amazing. We have got people in our church. We've got ladies that stay home with kids. We've got single people. We've got older people. And, man, they're figuring stuff that they like. Man, they're making these. I feel like it's a scam. They go and buy, they go to some flea market and buy these little clips, and they buy a bunch of ribbon, and it's really cute. And, of course, it looks great when they're done, but they make pacifier clips. They make hair bows. They make hats. They make all kinds of stuff. I don't know what it is. And they go and sell it on eBay, and everybody wants to buy it. They're making $800 a month, $1,200 a month. And they enjoy doing it. So maybe there's a way you can find to make more money. One of the things that our singles struggle with, the transition problem that we have quite a bit, is you get out of high school, and maybe you're able to live at home, maybe you're able to share or rent with somebody, and you're saving a lot of money, and so you think, man, all I need is a job that pays me like $10 an hour, because I can meet all my financial goals then. And then you find the woman of your dreams, and you want to ask for her dad for hand in marriage, and he wants to know what you're doing, and you're working at Wendy's, and he's not impressed. There has to be a time, and if you study biblically, and we won't have time to get into the whole thing today, but there has to be a time where we kind of step it up and get to a point where you say, you know what, I'm going to go into this thing full force. I'm going to, maybe I don't have a full family right now. Maybe I don't have this or that, but I want to go and just work like these men have talked about. Work. You're not going to be able to accomplish anything for the cause of Christ if you don't work. You just aren't. And if you don't get up and start working and having financial success, people, man, that just means you're all about the money. No, think what you can do. I don't know how your church does it. Our church, we put a big emphasis on missions. And we announce it. And believe it or not, every single service, some of you, Brother John's been there, a couple others, every service. Sunday school pre-service, Sunday morning service, Sunday night service, Wednesday night service. We announce what our goal for the year is. We announce how much has come in, and we announce how much positive or negative we are. We never say we want you to give anything else. We just let people know where it is. We have a little light. We have a cute little lighthouse for Lighthouse Baptist Church. It needs to be retired, but it's up on the back wall. And if the light is on in the lighthouse, we're where we need to be or positive. And so let's see here if I have my announcements from the other night. I probably don't. We had, our goal for this year is $185,000 for missions, 52 weeks. And so my Sunday night announcements this last week, missions update, 38 weeks. We've raised $138,816.46 through 38 weeks. That puts us ahead of schedule on a week-by-week basis by $3,624.38. Now, in 13 and a half weeks, we're going to be taking missions commitments again. And I don't know if you've ever sat there when that time has come and you say, man, God has stirred my heart. Brother Berryman's going to be with us this year. Brother Anderson's going to be with us this year. We have another couple of men, Brother Logan and some others, and they're going to be at our conference, and man, you get stirred. Brother Logan's an amazing man. He has started an independent Baptist Bible college in Lahore, Pakistan. They've got men training like crazy underneath. 12 churches have been started there. We're going back over to the United Arab Emirates and dealing with all the sand folk that work there, not just outside of Dubai. And people are being reached, people in Jordan, people in Malawi, and it's just not the traditional type of things you're doing, but they're reaching people, and it's making a huge difference. And you hear that, and your heart gets stirred, and you go, man, I would love to go on a mission trip. Man, would I love to give money to that. Man, would I love to be a part of that. Man, it's a shame I work at McDonald's. I have no money to do anything with. And by the way, it's not bad that you have a job at McDonald's, but maybe you could do more. Have you ever noticed how the Bible doesn't talk about us just making it and barely passing by and just barely getting by? No, he wants us to do everything we can. And maybe that's your goal. Say, man, I don't know how I could give money to missions. And by the way, we're kind of grown adults now. My daughter, she wanted to give to missions, and she gives every single week. She's 5 years old. And she gives $1 a week. Now, I don't know, and I have no clue here, but I hope everybody's giving at least $52 a year to missions in here. If my 5-year-old can do that, and by the way, my 4-year-old gives to missions, and my 3-year-old gives to missions. They love it. They want to be a part of it. Last night, who was saying that they're praying with their son? Was that you, Brother Walter? Who was that saying they're praying? There you go, Tyler. That's good. Get a heart for that. Have a desire for those things. But if you don't get in and you say, well, man, I need $25,000 a year, so I'm going to get a job that makes me $24,000. Well, that's fantastic. You can make it. You can pay your bills. You're not going backwards. But there's nothing wrong with making 50 and 60 and 70 and just giving it back to God. It's His anyways. What does Matthew 6:33 say? Seek ye first what? The kingdom of God and His righteousness. And all these things will be added unto you. If you seek Him first, everything's going to come back to you. Let have the desires of your heart there. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, Bible says this, lay up not for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. A lot of things we lay up as treasures on earth, maybe they wouldn't rust by the way we think of it, but they go away. You know that extra fancy cheeseburger that you bought when you kind of pushing the limits on things, it may not rust, but it disappears, doesn't it? You flush it, don't you? It's gone. It's the truth. Say, man, that was a great investment of my money. And you wave as it goes bye-bye. You ever seen people, you see a commercial or something, they're showing somebody just throwing money out the window? Flushing it down the toilet? We literally flush some of our money down the toilet. We've got to be so careful about how we use that. I turn over a chapter to Matthew chapter number 7. Look at verse number 7. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and him that knocketh it shall be opened. Do you ask God for spiritual success? I hope you do. Do you ask God for physical success and to be healthy? I hope you do. Do you ask God for financial success? Well, that wouldn't be very spiritual. Well, you read the Bible and you tell me if you think otherwise. Look, if you will, same chapter, verse number 24. The Bible says, therefore, whomsoever heareth these things, sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken unto him a wise man, which built his house upon a rock, and the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and fell upon it, for it was founded upon the rock. And you can see the context here, of course, in this chapter. But God wants us to make wise decisions, wise financial decisions. If you will, turn over to the book of Proverbs, let's start in chapter 22. Proverbs 22. I'm just going to give you a number of verses real quick, and then we'll get into a bunch of points as well here today. Proverbs chapter 22, and at the same time, let me read for you a verse here in Deuteronomy. Let's see if I can remember which one I had. Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse number 18. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is He that giveth thee power to get what? Wealth. Deuteronomy 8:18. Thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is He that giveth thee the power to get wealth. In the book of Proverbs, chapter number 22, the Bible says in verse number 26, Be not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for debts. If thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from underneath thee? And you need to look and study some of these verses yourself for sake of time. But the Bible talks a lot about money. Proverbs chapter number 11. Proverbs chapter 11, verse number 24, the Bible says, There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. Matthew chapter 7, back in that chapter, verse number 12. Therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them, for this is the law of the prophets. And he goes on and continues to speak. And there's references to money all throughout the Bible. A couple questions that were asked to me yesterday, and I'm going to try and get to as many of these today as we can. But when you retire, if we have time, we'll have a quick point on that today. But your age is so critical right now. Have you seen the math of being able to double your money? I can't remember who it was that said, but they said if you have any amount of money, what would it be? He says, just give me 1 penny and double it perpetually for a month. And I forget the amount what that was, but it was millions and millions. Just double a penny over a month, and it's millions and millions of dollars. The difference between starting right now and waiting another 5 or 10 years is huge. In most cases, you're probably going to average somewhere, if you invest wisely, you can average about every 8 years or so. Maybe every 6 to 7 years, maybe every 9 to 10, depending on what you're putting your money into. But that'll turn over. So help me out with something. If you could save up, and let's say you had $10,000, and let's just use 7 as a pretty good average number, maybe 8, but let's say 7, and you could double your money in 7 years. Let's say, our average, let's say you're 25 years old. So by the time you're 32, that 10 could roughly turn into 20. Then by the time you're 39, it would turn from 20 into 40. Then from the time that you are, where are we at? That would be 39, 46, you'd be at 80, am I right? And then when you're 53, you'd be at $160,000. And then when you're 60, you'd be at 320, am I right? Is that $320,000? Now let's say you stop there. Because if you waited another 7 years, that's about where you'd stop. But now that 320 turns to 640,000. Do you see how by missing that one saving, yeah, but it's the beginning, it's not when I'm making much. No, but time runs out in our life, and you have to get it started now. And the difference can be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And well, before we finish, I'll try and give you some thoughts, some things that have worked for me that is not a big risky type of thing. There's all kinds of things. Trust me, if you want something to invest in, you don't have to look very far. Somebody recently gave me a lead, said, man, this is amazing. Company called Profitable Sunrise. They're amazing. I mean, and they are holding your money. They're doing higher interest loans. It's based out of Eastern Europe. It's a fantastic thing. It's been going, and I talk to people, and they've been getting their money back for about 1.5 years, 2 years. One thing you should always do is pray. It was said yesterday, everything, Brother John said, man, everything was right about that property except for the peace of God. I didn't have the peace of God about it. And I'll tell you what, I know people that put thousands into it and did great. And magically, it all shut down. It was shut down by the Justice Department here in the United States for people who are investing. It went away. You can find stuff. You say, man, I'll tell you what, I need to just find something to invest in. There are more than enough opportunities for you. People, once they find out you're willing to invest money, oh, they're right there, and hey, how are you doing today? I've got the best thing for you. It's amazing. I'm going to change your life. And they have this way of doing it to where you feel honored. They're like, you know, let me tell you what now. I'm not going to tell everybody about this. But if you want, I'll allow you. Just don't tell everybody. I'll allow you to put your money in. You're like, man, this is amazing. I got one of the biggest breaks you've ever seen. This is great. Can't tell everybody. Then you go tell your friends. No, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. So, shh. And you know what they do? Well, can you get me in on that? Can you get me in on that? And they go back. These people are geniuses. They got it all figured out. And guess what? 2 years later, somebody asks you, hey, man, how'd that go? Well, you know, I don't know, really. Well, where's the money at? What happened? Well, I don't know. We're praying that it comes back. No, you're not. It's gone. It's toast. You know it is. And so be very, very wise about those things there. One thing that I notice you'll see is that a church reflects its pastor and its leadership's character. Always does. I think of Brother Wallace's church down there. It reflects your dad's personality and his character. I think of John's church. It's a mess. I mean, it reflects John's character. How many of you know Brother John Anderson pretty well? Does he have a good time? Do you think his church folks have a good time? Trust me. My wife, she goes, whatever. Man, you're going over to London. You're not going to do anything spiritual. You're just going to party, man. I said, that's right. All in the name of what's holy. Glory to God. That we do. But it reflects that. In churches, I remember when I was young, it just stuck out in my mind. We had something called a youth extravaganza, and my pastor, there's a different day. We'd meet at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. We'd meet at 6 o'clock in the morning at the church. Had no idea we were going to do it, and our pastor took us from 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Didn't tell us what we were doing, where we were going, and we just spent the whole day. We had a blast. It was $100 or something like that. And one day we'd go rafting, and one day we went to San Francisco and did things, and one day we went here, one day we went there, went to an amusement park, a Six Flags, just had a great time. I remember one day that I was sitting there walking along in San Francisco. This will date me, but remember when the Nike Town stores came out? It was a big deal. Good, I'm glad both of us do. And it was a big, and man, we went in there and it was like a 3-level, and it was great, man. It was the coolest thing in the world. And I went there, and I'm a big Denver Bronco fan. I was born in Colorado, and good, there's a saved person here. That's great. Man, I tell you what, had a great time. That thing was just, and I saw this cool hat. It was the first hat that Nike Town put out with the Nike swoosh for the Broncos, or Nike for all you in the UK. I'm telling you what, it was great. I thought it was cool. And you know what's really interesting is my pastor saw that. He was in the same room and noticed that. And 10 minutes after we left the store, he caught up with me. He says, hey, he says, Jason, he says, I thought you'd like this. He went and bought that hat for me. Never asked me, but he bought for it. And you know what? That endeared my heart. That meant a lot to me. It was a big deal. And you know what? And it wasn't because he bought me a hat. It was because of the whole culmination of everything. But as a pastor, I wanted to do anything I could for him. He always was willing to do something for me. And churches, that's the same way. Man, love your pastor. Do stuff for your pastor. Your pastor does more for you than you ever realize. You don't get to see, yeah, well, he didn't buy me a hat. Who cares? You wouldn't look good in a hat anyways. There's so much that he does behind the scenes. I'm in a somewhat unique position. Most folks, generally speaking, Brother Wallace is in a somewhat similar situation. Most people go to Bible college, get out of Bible college, and you go straight into the ministry. And that's all you know. Or you're just a great layperson working in the church. But very few people work either in the corporate world or out living in the world, and then 10, 12 years later you get in and you see the difference. I am shocked. I am absolutely shocked. I'm crossing over a little bit into tomorrow morning's session, so I'll try not to do that much. I am absolutely shocked and disgusted at the way our church people treat our pastors. Yeah. It's unbelievable. They would never treat the president of their company that way. They would never, and by the way, the pastors end up spending a lot more personal time and off the 8 to 5 time than any corporate executive does. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I sit here and see what they do and what they deal with. You know, my wife sometimes will be like, what are you doing, 11:30 again tonight? It's like, there's problems, there's issues. And then you find out a month later that somebody will go and stab you in the back or in the front. Man, we've got to take and the way we can do that, we should love them, we should pray for them, but one way we should do that is we should do that financially. My kids, as they get older, we'll find something that our pastor likes. In Tennessee, it was weird. The only thing he liked was Halls. He liked these cough drops. I don't know if he even had a cough or not, but he just loved these cough drops. And so we buy a big bag of those and let the kids take them up. I want to teach them to give. I want to teach them to get that. Put something in the plate. Do something. And that's the same for us. Do something for your pastor. Yeah, well, you know, he probably makes a lot of money. No, he probably doesn't make a lot of money. I don't know any super rich pastors. And that's one thing that as the church reflects the pastor's personality and the pastor is loving on you, that's something we should do back. In our church, we're very, very blessed. The financial prowess at our church is to the point we're not perfect. We're not well, but we're not spending. In the last about year and a half to 2 years, our offerings have gone up about 40 to 45%. It's great. We've not taken on any new debt. And we're putting it away. And we'll put about $100,000 to $150,000 a year, just extra, in the bank. Now, we have plenty of things to spend it on, and some of which we're going to do. We want to do everything we can to pay that debt down. And our goal is to get that done. We have a property that's worth about $1.3 million or so, and bought it, and we've been in it for a few years. We have a goal to pay that down in 7 years, just pay it off. And have refinanced that and move forward with it, and we owe about $400,000 on the property. We actually have more than that in the bank, but we want to make sure and save it for some things. We're looking at having some money. Cash is king in the financial world. My grandpa taught me this: he who has the gold wins. You don't have money, nobody cares. You want to go buy a house, and you want to put an offer in on a house, and you're going to go and hopefully kind of maybe get a loan, and you're going to hopefully kind of make it work out, and somebody else comes in and says, I'll pay cash. Guess who gets the house? They get the house. And it's critical to have that. And so as we continue to look to buy a property and build an auditorium, build a whole, we want to make sure and be smart about that and have a good balance. You have to spend some money, and there's things you have to do to keep up with, as we went over yesterday, but there's many, many other areas as well too. One question that I'm going to get into in this next point is on credit cards. Some of you are going to love this here. First point I gave you the other day was live within your means. Number 2, I said don't create unnecessary bills. Number 3, that we'll just kind of skim through as much of this as quick as we can here today. According to the Bible, Proverbs 14:34 is a good verse for us. There's many others, but your credit should be above reproach. Your credit is a reflection of you. I've talked to a number of folks even in our church, and they're asking me a little bit about this and that, and they've either moved to the area, and who do you use for insurance? I said, right now I use AAA. I don't know, do you have AAA here in Florida, don't you? In Texas, you have AAA insurance, some of these different places. I use AAA in our area. The reason why is because they make their decision based on your credit. And I happen to have an 804 credit score. They like that. And so they make their decision based on that. I always, and one thing you should always do, write it down, always get at least 3 quotes on any kind of money you're spending. Always get 3 quotes. Yeah, but I know this guy. That's great that you know the guy, but you need to find out where the level playing field is in any industry that you're doing. And I went and got my 3 quotes. I actually went and got 4 quotes because it was so skewed. Of the 4 quotes, 3 of them were within $100 of each other, all right about the same. AAA was $700 less. I said, hey, are you sure you have my address right? Are you sure you have my driver's license right? What am I missing here? And very simply, they just said, no, we do it based off of credit. That's going to save me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars over the years. Be prepared for that. Be aware of that. In Proverbs chapter 14 and verse number 34, turn there if you will real quick. Mark some of these down. And study them yourself. You need to see some of these. Just if you write them down on a piece of paper and study some of these when you look at some of your decisions you're making financially, hopefully be a help to you. Righteousness endureth or exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. You can interpret that how you want, but if you're living a life that is not right, and your credit, your financial lifestyle is a reproach, that's a sin. Yeah, but God just doesn't understand how hard I have it. God understands how hard you have it and how hard everybody else has it. It doesn't matter what you're struggling with today, and these men have hit on it this week. No matter what you're struggling on, no matter what section, what area, somebody else has dealt with it. What does the Bible say about that? There's no sin which such is not as common to man. Well, everybody's struggled with one thing, and a lot of people in our country struggle with finances. Our president struggles with finances. Our Congress struggles with finances. We're in big trouble. It's a sad thing. One of the best things you could have ever invested in were treasury bonds in the U.S. I mean, that was just, man, solid. I wouldn't invest in it. I love my country, but I don't know if I'd invest in it. And neither do a whole lot of other countries and banking and financial institutions around the world. Our credit's been downgraded. Things are not going the way. We're in trouble from that. Our credit should be above reproach. If you can't pay for it, immediately don't charge it. You should just make a decision in your mind. If I don't have the money today, I'm not going to put it on the charge card. Now, I'm a lazy person. Plus, we're technologically advanced enough to where you don't have to go, get out of your car, walk up, stand in line behind the 5 guys who want to buy cigarettes, and then go and give them your $20 bill to get gas. They have you've seen little machines on there now. You put your credit card in, you're done. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can stay on your phone if you're in a state that allows you to do that. You can have a great time, and you can listen to your music, do whatever. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can get your gas, you can pay for it, and you move on your way. I know people are in trouble because they just do it, and they're like, I didn't realize I put $300 in gas, and I don't have any money to pay for it. Well, you need to realize you need to budget it. I have a budget item. I even do just a basic spreadsheet. Now, I've got QuickBooks. I've got all that kind of stuff, too. But just for me, I've got a basic spreadsheet. I have all the items of what I have, bills that go out for the month. Then I have a column that says my projected spent amount for that. If it's utilities, it's this much. I'm projecting $250 this month for my utilities. When the utility bill comes in, I put next to it exactly what I spent. It'll tell me that if I follow my budget, here's exactly where I should be. I should be plus how much money this month. How much money am I going to have extra to put away? And then I can see if, oh, well, I spent a little bit more on this, a little bit more on that, and I can guide myself, and I can see the next month where I'm going to go with that. But you've got to be careful. Don't put stuff on a credit card if you can't pay for it. Man, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. People have asked me this week, I think 5 or 6 times, do you think it's okay to get a credit card? Absolutely. I do. I know a lot of preachers say, don't get a credit card. You should never get a credit card. It's horrible for you. It's bad for you. It's going to tempt you. That's kind of like saying, should I ever date a girl? No, never date a girl, man. They're bad for you. They're horrible. They're going to cause you to do bad things. It's going to be bad. Just don't ever talk to one again. Well, that works real good, doesn't it? You need to be able to control that. You need to be able to have that under your grip and under control. It's an important thing. They want to know your longevity. They want to know your history. They want to know who you are. Your credit tells people a lot about who you are, what type of habits you have. That's why insurance companies and others make their decisions based according to that. You can go to freecreditreport.com once a year, get a free credit report. Know your number. Know what your credit score is. Let me give you a couple points here that I laid out. Your credit, there's a couple different things in regards to your credit here and credit worthiness. Your credit worthiness, number one, is made up of 5 different segments. So if you are trying to figure out why you have great or bad credit, here's where it is right here. Number one, the most important factor, and this makes up 35% of your score, if you will, and that is your on-time versus your late payments. And that's what everybody focuses on, and that is critical. Be on time, be on time, be on time. But did you know, praise the Lord, in 20 years, I've never had one late payment for anything of any kind anywhere, and I don't have a perfect credit score. The highest credit score right now, they're changing a lot of the systems and tweaking a lot of them. There's Experian, TransUnion, and the other one I'm going blank on right now. What is it? Equifax, thank you. They are the 3 main, but there's a new score and a new thing that's coming out that's merging these, a lot of computer modules. But using the traditional system, you can get up to 830, 850. I don't have an 830 credit score. I've got an 804. And once you get over 780, nobody cares anyways. It's just for bragging rights. Really, once you get over 720, in most cases, you're going to get the max benefit that you can from a loan and interest rates and things like that. So you want to always be over 720. Aim for the 780 if you can. That'll be no questions asked on that. Somebody says, do you know roughly what your credit score is? You say, yeah, it's in the 780s. Questions are done. You skipped a whole lot of time. You're moving on with your life. And so part of that, 35% of it, is your on time versus your late payments. Another big part of that, which is 30% of it, is the percent that you've borrowed versus your available credit limits. So let's say that you've got a credit card, and that credit card is $25,000 on the limit, and you've got $20,000 on it. That's not good. They look at that as, man, he is pushing it. He is 80% of the way to being completely maxed out. So it's actually not a bad thing in many cases. If you get a credit card and they're going to give you a $20,000 limit and you pretty much keep $300, $400, $500 a month on there and you pay it off every month. See, what you don't understand is when they pull your credit, even if you pay it off every month, the day they pull that credit is what their snapshot in time is of who you are and how much money you've spent. We just recently closed on a house. And I had to be purchasing some things, and I told our lender, I said, I need you to be aware of the fact we're going to be purchasing these things. She said, that's fine, your numbers are good. But when it came out, it says my regular revolving line, I think, was $2,300. I was like, I don't owe any money on my credit card. But the day they pulled it, there were now the bill hadn't even come out yet, but there was $2,300 that was being held on the credit card for different things we were purchasing. And so if you keep that rotational basis low at $300, $400, $500, $800, whatever it is, and you got a credit line of $20,000, they're looking at this and they're saying, man, this person's pretty disciplined. They're only really using 3, 4, 5% of all the credit they could, and they like that quite a bit. And that's 30% of your score right there. How much of what you're allowed to spend are you spending? The third factor, and the percentages drop down here a little bit, but how long have you been borrowing money and paying bills? And this, although it only takes 15%, it weighs very, very heavy in their algorithms. And when you look at this, they want to know how long have you been, your history, of course, but it's not just how old you are, it's how long you've been consistent in one area. I got a credit card. I went to Bible college, and I think they were ready for me to go too, Brother Wallace, when I got there. But when I got there, I got this credit card. Man, I was hot stuff. I was 18 years old, and I got a credit line of $500. And that's about all I needed at the time. But as I grew up and got older, all of a sudden that card went up and they magically get something in the mail, or I get an email, hey, you're up to a $1,500 credit line. I think that card now, I don't even know, I think it's $20,000 or $25,000 is on that line. And I got it because it was like a student card at the time. It was a Citibank. And I watched it and I could get points, and it had a thank you rewards program on it and all these different things. It was very interesting. I'm not using that as my primary card anymore for some different reasons. But I'm not ever going to close that card down. I'm going to keep that open because it's consistent. And they can look back and say, hey, we have a 20-year track record with this card. And if he's going to do this for 20 years, we feel pretty good about what he's going to do with this and this and this. And so having the time that you borrowed is a big point. The fourth area is the type of credits that are used. This is why it's so critical to get a credit card. If you don't have a credit card, they can't measure anything on it. And by the way, if you can't control it, you need to be accountable to somebody, or you need to get some help or whatever. We can help you with that. But it's very important for going forward in your life. You want to get a car, a house, refinance, get good loan rates, and therefore you need to have that. The different types of credit, whether it's a credit card, whether it's an installment loan, whether it's a store account, they look at all those. Cell phones are a big one nowadays, and they look at all those and say, you know, how many different things. They want to see that you're consistent in all your different areas. And the last area that makes up your credit worthiness is the number of inquiries over a certain amount of time. This is not as big a deal. It's only 10%. But if you're constantly going and having people check stuff, and you're constantly, well, I'm going to go look for a new car, and you've gone to 32 different used car lots, and they've all pulled your credit is going to get hit. Generally speaking, about 2 points, maybe as much as 3 points each time it's pulled. So it's not a big deal. You're gonna get a new credit card. You're probably going to lose 2 points, and it'll fall off depending on the time, anywhere from 6 months to a year or 2 years later. Once that's gone, it falls back off. When you go over and over and over and do that, man, people are like, I'm going to try and apply for 12 or 15 different credit cards because I don't know which one I'm going to get. Don't do it. I'm going to go try and see who's going to give me the best deal, so I'm going to go to 13 different car lots. Don't do it. Take it one at a time on that, and be careful when you're spending on that. So 3 critical factors in your credit is, of course, your credit worthiness. The second thing in financial under this is your debt-to-income ratio. And you got to be very, very aware of your debt-to-income ratio. If your total income is $100,000 a year, and all God's people would say glory to God about that, and you spend 25% of it on your mortgage payments, then you're looking at, and maybe it's 30% if you include your mortgage payments and some other debts. You're going to have things that look like a 25 to 30% debt-to-income ratio. Houses right now, they may allow you up to 40%, 41, 42%. Trust me, you don't want to do that. We're in a personal financial situation. We got a great transaction where we're at. I was very familiar. I looked for over a year. The houses, we closed on a house 3 months ago, and the house is bigger than what we needed. But we're planning on staying there and having it and growing up in it. And I watched. We signed the contract the day before I knew from the inside that they were going to be raising the price of the house. It was a new build house. And the house that we moved into, now 3 weeks after we moved into it, another family bought the exact same model, same floor plan, same builder, same neighborhood on the street behind us, and they paid $141,000 more than we did for the exact same house. So I kind of pushed how much we were going to spend. It was a little more than I wanted to spend, but it was a fantastic financial decision. It was a really good and at the same time, interest rates were really, really good. And so my payment, we went from what was a 1,600 square foot house we were renting when we moved to Colorado Springs, and we moved into a 4,800 square foot house, and my payment has gone down. And we own it. And so it made a lot of sense to do that. And you got to be very, very careful, but your debt-to-income ratio is a big deal. You don't want to be pushing that number between your car payment and your house payment and this type of thing. You don't want to be doing that kind of stuff and be at 50% before you start. You realize you're going to have 10, 20% in taxes. You're going to have 10% tithe. So us as Christians, we really only operate off of between 60 and 70% of our money. So if your house is 40% of that and your car is 10% of that, oh my goodness, you're in trouble. And you don't have any money left to do anything with. And so that debt-to-income ratio, and the other thing is, of course, your home's loan-to-value. You want to be careful with that from a credit standpoint. We're going to muscle through this as quick as we can. Next point I'm going to give you is this. We talked about living within your means and not creating unnecessary bills and your credit being above reproach. But number 4, don't talk bad about your financial situation. Don't poor mouth your financial situation. I hear people talk about this all the time. How you doing, brother? Oh, we're just barely making it. My grandfather told me something one time that I found to be very, very true. He said, when you tell everybody about how bad your life is and how hard it is and how sick you are and how sad you are and how lonely you are, you know that 80% of the world could care less? They don't care how bad it is for you. They don't care how hard you're having it. And the other 20% wish it was worse on you. So we kind of go around and we want everybody to feel sorry for us. And, oh, man, it's a poor me. And how you doing today, brother? Well, do you have some time? No, not really. Just get right with God and move on. Now, are there things we have to deal with? Of course there are. But when you look at your life, don't poor mouth it. We're in the position we're in spiritually. This is going to be very deep for you. The reason why you're not getting stuff out of the Bible, the reason you are not feeling like you're a better Christian than you are is because you personally are failing spiritually. You're not doing what you need to do spiritually. The reason why you're having a tough time in most cases financially is because you're not doing what you need to do financially. You're either spending too much or you're not making enough and you're not watching it. Do you know the reason why? I had to go, poor brother John Anderson, I don't know what happened, about 3 years ago. I'm going to testify here for just a minute. We had a talk. I was over there in London and I was talking. He's shaking his head, no, don't do it. Have you ever heard of the Sacred Heart diet? Okay. Yeah, the reason you've heard about it is because John's heard about it because I told him about it, and the poor guy thinks he worships the Sacred Heart diet now, just like I have. It's one of those they use at the Mayo Clinic, and for people to lose weight in about 7 days, because when they're going to have surgeries and stuff, and it's unlike one of these where you don't have carbs and you gain it all back. In most cases, like you say, John, you pretty much keep most of it off for a while, and until you just go crazy again. And you look at that, and we talked about that. I was at a youth conference for the last 10 days before I got here. And I don't know if any of us were right with God when we left. We ate and we ate and we ate. And so do you know what I did the week before I went on to youth conference? Because I knew I was going to be gone for about 3 weeks. I took the Sacred Heart diet. I said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to gain about 10 pounds, so I need to lose about 10 before I leave. So I'm right now where I was before I started the diet 3 weeks ago. Do you know why I'm back up to where I am weight-wise? Because I'm not doing physically what I need to be doing. Yeah, I don't understand. And I understand people have different situations and health reasons. I know there are exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, a lot of us know what we need to do financially, personally, spiritually, physically, and we just don't do it. You know how you make a lot of money? You work. You work, and then you be smart, and you invest. And part of it, somebody mentioned to me the other day, they said, man, I kind of feel bad because I sit at a desk, and I really don't work. I don't dig ditches. I don't work hard. My wife's from the South, and the word work there means, man, you're going to sweat and you're going to toil, and by the way, you should do that. But just because you're sitting at a desk and using your brain and your mind doesn't mean you're not working, and you should do that regularly. Don't poor mouth your financial situations there. In Luke chapter 3, verse 7 through 15, I'll just, for sake of time, have you look at those. It kind of gives the 3 different categories of people. And it's talking about the people and, of course, the publicans. And then I've turned it into saying soldiers because I was trying to alliterate it. And it was the people, the publicans, and the privates. And I thought, maybe I'll just keep it to them. And they look and they went through and talks about their situation there. And you can take time to read that on your own. But too many people constantly think and talk about their money and their lack of money. And it was brought up this week here by Brother Pope, the difference between your conscious and your subconscious. But when you keep on putting this stuff in front of you over and over and over and over and over, it's just on your mind constantly. Oh, man, I just don't have enough money. Oh, I just don't have enough money. Oh, I'm just not going to make it. It's not going to help you out. And don't poor mouth that. Be content with your wages. See, I need to make more money. Now, if you can make more and you're working 4 hours a day, and you're playing video games the rest of the day, that's lame. I mean, you need to be able to get a job. If you're 20 plus years old, you need to be working 40 hours a week. You need to be tithing to your church. You need to be helping. Brother Stancil, roughly how many singles do you have in your church?
25 to 40, depending on.
Okay, let's take 30 as an average. And I don't know, let's say 40 and divide it in half. Let's say half of them have a good job and half of them don't really have a job. If there were 20 singles in a church that just decide, I'm going to get a job, I'm just going to get a $40,000 to $50,000 a year job, get something where I can make money and be smart at it and get it, and I'm going to tithe. Do you realize, Brother Stancil, your church would see the offerings go up between $100,000 and $150,000 a year? Could your church use $150,000 a year right now? Glory to God. We all could. Say, well, yeah, but it's just that, I don't know, man. I mean, Madden 13 is intense. I mean, I'm just, I got to be the world champion at it. Call of Duty, man. I mean, me and my buddies, we've got it down. That's great. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Do you know the number one segment right now for video game, people that purchase video games? Anybody have any idea what the biggest segment right now is? 40 to 45. Number one. I remember back in the 80s, my dad lost a job. My he's great with finances. I don't know what he was thinking when he did this, but he lost his job. The company downsized, and he went out and said, you know what, since I'm going to be home for a bit, I'm going to buy something that just came out. It's called the Nintendo. Yeah. For you kids. I was like, cool. I don't think I ever played the thing one time. And he was, at the time, you got to remember now, he was probably, let's see, that would have put him at, in his, I don't know, maybe his 30s or so, and late 20s, early 30s, and man, he was playing that thing. It took the man 3 months, and he could not get to level 4 on Mario 1. I tell you what, I had to sit here and disciple him on how to get to level 8, part 4, within a week, and he couldn't believe it. People do that all the time now. They're just spending time on this stuff nonstop. Don't poor mouth your situation. Be content with your wages there. Look at your big picture. Are you on track? Right now, and this goes back to the credit thing, as well as your financial situation. If you buy a $100,000 house and you can get a 4% interest rate, which right now you can actually probably get 3 3/4. Over the term of that loan, that house is going to cost you $171,700. You're still going to have to pay that extra $71,000 for the interest. But if you go and you say, well, maybe my credit's just a little bit worse, and maybe you end up getting up to a 6% rate, it's going to cost you $216,000 for the same house with the interest. You go up to where you're at 8%, where a lot of people are, you're at $265,000. People that have to borrow money even, and a lot of churches get in this situation. You start getting into hard money loans, or when the interest rates go up, you'll start seeing these become reality. 10%, $316,000, 12% interest is going to put you at just short of $400,000 for that $100,000 house. Don't throw the money away on that. Your house should be roughly, and this has changed a lot over the last number of years, but your house should be roughly 2.5 to 3 times your annual salary. Yeah, man, but at McDonald's, I'm only making $18,000 a year. Good, you should buy about a $35,000 to $40,000 house then. Good luck. I make $100,000 a year. Well, and people now will buy 300-400. You're allowed to buy more than that, but if you want to keep your numbers in check and you have struggles, it's a good thing to go buy. Your car, try to keep it at 8% of your monthly cash flow or below. Say, man, I tell you what, I'm making $2,000 a month, and I just got a $600 a month car payment. And some of you say, I have the money to do it. And every time after I'll teach one of these things, I've got the money, I can handle it. Yeah, but someday something else is going to come up. There's going to be a doctor bill, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, there's going to be an opportunity. The woman of your dreams is finally going to show up, and you're going to be committed into a car payment, and you're going to barely be able to make it. Yeah, I'm okay living in a studio apartment that's 97 years old. It's okay, man, I like it. Yeah, but she won't. Be ready, be prepared. Think 5 and 10 years down the road all the time, constantly, at those type of things there. For sake of time, we'll just keep moving on here, I guess, real quick here. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2, write it down. This is very, very basic. But you want to have financial success, and it probably should be point number 1. It's not, but tithe. and tithe weekly. Tithe regularly. I know some preachers preach you should, every single week put something in there. I wish I could say I do that all the time. I don't. That's the last thing that I write a check for. I don't write a check for anything. I do bill pay, I do electronic transfers, I do wires, everything. But God bless the church, we still take checks. And so, I have checks that I think they have an address from 3 years ago on it. And the only people I write it to is the church, and that's where they get it. But tithe. Tithe regularly, tithe weekly. Don't ever owe God or get caught owing God, if you will. You don't want to be owing God anything. God's given all this to us, and we're not careful. We just sit around and think, well, if things work out good. No, that's not how it works. I had a young man that I got to lead to the Lord, and started coming and started being faithful, and he started, I didn't really teach a lesson or preach on it, but somehow it came out about tithing. And he came out and he says, Brother Brockman, can I talk to you? He says, I've just been looking at things financially, and there's just no way. It's so tight, we can't do it. I said, well, the Bible says to tithe. It's just what it says. He says, yeah, but what if I already have too many bills? He said, do you think it would be okay? He says, I was praying last night. I told God I'd start with a 4% tithe. I said, well, that's kind of an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a 4% tithe. But you know what? I'd rather him start at 4% than do squat. And he did, and within 2 months, he was up to his 10%. And he did, and he had a goal, and he had a system, and he had a plan. But get into that. We use this excuse, I don't have enough money to. And by the way, you should give the 10%. You should never, ever not give the 10%. But if I had somebody and they said there are only two choices, well, I'm not going to give anything, or I'm going to give so much, you better give everything you can to God, and that should be that. And here's the next point. Most people mess this up. How many of you think, help me out here, how many of you think a tithe is 10%? How many of you don't think that tithe is 10%? Okay, the other half of you did not vote. We'll try that again. How many of you think a tithe is 10%? Okay, how many of you think a tithe is not 10%? Okay, why not? How many of you think a tithe, a tithe, a tenth, is more than 10%? Okay? A tithe is not 10%. Tithe is the first 10%. A tithe is not just giving God 10% of your money. A tithe is giving God the first. God, everything is the first part to God. The first day of the week, the first amount of our money. And if you do that and you follow, the reason why is because if you do that and you give God your first 10%, then instead of saying, oh man, God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to tithe, I don't know how I'm going to be able to give money to church. No, then you sit there and go, oh, I just don't know how I'm going to get my extra Starbucks. I don't know how I'm going to get my extra. Then that's the problem. And it's a shame when we get to a point where we've chosen Starbucks over God. It's a shame when we get to a point where we say, man, I'm just going to have to figure out a way to make it. That should never, you don't do that with where you live, do you? You don't do that with your car payment. Why? Because it's important to you. Oh, I don't want them to take my car away. I sure don't want them to take my house away. You want to lose your relationship with God? You don't want that being taken away either. Always tithe. Tithe is the first 10%. Of course, give that to God all the time. Next point here, don't compare your finances with other people. The book of Proverbs, in chapter 23, verse 5 says, wilt thou set thine eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves as wings and fly away as an eagle toward heaven. This is where many people blow it. Yeah, but my best buddy, man, he just went and bought this, and this. It doesn't mean you have to. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses. That causes more problems trying to keep up with people all the time. Yeah, but they bought this. I've got to have it. Do you know how lame it would be if I didn't have an iPhone right now? The whole church would the whole singles group would just laugh at me if I had a flip phone. Probably. But if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. And don't tell God, I've got to have this type of phone, and I can't afford to take care of what you've commanded me to. Make sure that you're not comparing your finances with other people. You never know the whole story with folks. You just never know the whole story. You don't know. I've dealt with young couples on this all the time. And one of them will come in and say, I think we should buy this. And the other one says, I just don't think we should. And generally that's how it is. Most times God in His wisdom somehow has connected us up to where one person, how many of you are married in here? If you're married, okay. Now, just be honest with you. Is one of you, I don't even know who or anything, but is one of you more of the spender? Generally, okay? Is one of you more of the saver? Generally, that's how it works. This gets asked all the time. I taught this first time way back in Sunday school. And one of the ladies came up to me and she's like, Brother Brockman, I don't know what to do. We have a problem. And I said, what is it? She goes, well, I do the finances at our house. I said, okay. What's the problem? Well, I do the finances. And I said, well, I'm missing something. She goes, well, yeah, but I'm a lady. And then the man should be the head of the house. And I said, and her husband's name, I promise you, great guy, I got him in our class. His name was Jimi Hendrix. His real name, J-I-M-I, Jimi Hendrix. We had an interesting class. And I said, Jimmy, I said, are you okay with her doing that? He goes, man, I don't have a clue about money, man. I hope she keeps doing it. I said, well, then what's the problem? Well, I don't want to usurp the... Hey, if you know how to do the finances, do the finances. You're not going to sit there, well, I'm going to go ahead and make sure he does it, and, he's going to, blow an extra $10,000, because, no, that's not the focus. Just make sure that it's right there and do it right. And you're not comparing with other people. You want to make sure that you are living the right way. There are a lot of financial trials that come up, and I wish that I'd have time. I think for sake of time, I'll probably skip this here, but you can have all kinds of financial trials. And if we had more time, maybe next year, another session, whatever, things that will hit you will surprise you. And when it's too late, it's too late. It takes so long. Do you realize that if you have got money invested, let's say you have $100. This is on a very small scale. You have $100 and you buy a stock at $100 and it loses 10%. And you sell it when it lost it, so it's now worth $90. How many of you think that stock has to go back up 10% for you to get your money back? How much does it have to go up? What is 10% going to take it back up to? $99. So it's always more work after the fact. And you start multiplying that, and people that are investing $100,000, and they're losing 20% of their money. And people that have lost 40 and 50% of their money. That's why it takes so long, and it's so hard to get back, because you lose 40% of your money, and you're at $60,000. 40% that's only going to get you back to $84,000. So if it goes all the way back to where it was, on that you're in the same percentage-wise, you're still way behind the 8 ball. And so be very careful when it comes to that. Next point, we'll skim through this quickly here. Live conservatively on a disciplined budget. I kind of explained to you a basic spreadsheet I use. I do it because it's just easy. I can keep it on a laptop. I can open it up at any time. If I'm paying a bill on the road, I can just plug it in without having to open up a big, huge financial thing. I use QuickBooks and other things for other financial things. But for just a basic reference tool, I'll use that quite a bit. Tell your money where to go. You have to tell it where to go. You have to set goals for that. I'll give you some thoughts real quick to how to help you keep your financial goals in front of you. And how you can do that, and keep a guide on this. And I'll give you these, and you can try and apply them yourself. First one here, this is kind of some money math, if you will. The first one is called the Rule of 72. Anybody heard of the Rule of 72 financially? Okay, many of you may know what that is. Rule of 72 is real quick. If you want to estimate how long it's going to take for you to double your money in an investment, that's what you do. You, based on your rate of return, you use the number 72, you divide your rate by 72, and that's how long it's going to take. So if you've got interest at 9%, you divide that by, from 72, what is that going to be? 72 divided by 8 is, or 9 is, thank you. So how long is it going to take for you to double your money? 8 years. So you got $100,000 and you can get it into that interest rate. At that point in time, your money's going to be doubled. So kind of do the math on that. If it's going to take you, you're getting 7%. It's going to take you about 10 years. So you need to look at where that is, and you can kind of get a grasp on the long term on that. How many of you know the Rule of 70? Financial Rule of 70, very, very simple one as well too. Inflation erodes the buying purchase in the dollar. It just is what it is. And the Rule of 70, you have to look long term. When you're committing your money to something, you have to see what your money is going to be worth when it's all done and over with. And you have to kind of play with that and see what you can do. But the eventually your dollar is only going to buy so much. I was talking to some of those who came over from Europe this week. I said, man, it's at $1.51. They said, man, it was $1.58 when we left. 7 cents was made up in a week. Now, that's a difference in currency. I'm talking about just in your own dollar, in the American dollar that we have right here, right now. You want to know how quickly your money is going to lose its buying power? Divide 70 by the expected inflation rate. If the inflation rate is at 3.5% right now, at 3.5% inflation rate, you divide that by 70, then your dollar is going to be worth 50 cents in 20 years. Say, man, I put all this money in the bank and it's great, making 2% interest. Well, guess what? Over time, it's going to continue to go down and down and down because of the rate of inflation. So you can divide the rate of inflation where it's at, and it's been low. I think you're going to see a radical rise in inflation very soon. I think that it would be very good for many of you, and I can't prognosticate anything, but I would advise you, if you're sitting there on the fence on some things, you're probably going to see interest rates rise, you're going to see inflation rise, you're going to see a lot of costs rise because you just can't keep up with the way it is going. And that'll probably change, and so your money is going to be worth less, and your interest is going to go higher. That's one reason I ended up buying what I did when I did, because of the value of that there. So you can use that and kind of follow that where you see where the inflation rate is on that. And then understand the value of compounding money. And most of you know that. If you had a $100 bill, though, and you would put it into compounding money at even just 8%, and most decent investments you can get in at 8%, after 10 years, it's going to be worth $216. After 20 years, it's worth $466. After 30 years, it's worth over $1,000. Just your $100 bill you put in, just letting it sit there. If you hold it for 40 years, you're worth over about $2,200. And so put money aside and keep it there and just forget about it. It drives my wife nuts, but I try and put money places that I forget about it all the time. I opened up a little satchel bag. This is great, man. I tell you, when I talk about glory to God. I had a little satchel bag that I tried using one time, forgot about it. I opened it up, and I had $487 in Nordstrom gift cards I forgot about in there. Hallelujah. And the next pocket over, it had $1,685 in cash I forgot I put in there. It was great. It was fantastic. I was wondering where that was for a long time. And you know what I did with that? I put it right away. I put it into my safe. I have to put guards against myself. I've got checking accounts, and then I've got like travel accounts or Christmas accounts. We have money to do that. If a missions trip comes up, I want to make sure I have money in there. If somebody says, man, you wouldn't believe this opportunity came up. We're going to go serve the Lord in 3 weeks. Most people, 90% of people are going to be like, oh, that's great, but I don't have any money to do that. Well, I don't want to be limited by that, so I'm going to try and put that money aside. I'm going to try and keep it somewhere. So if that comes up, it's there. I already have it set aside. It's not coming out of my main amount of money. But I'll hide myself money from that. I'll hide myself money. I mean, I must have got it from my grandpa. When they died, we found a little money stashed here and a little money stashed there, and it was great, man. It was just kind of like we're just going on a treasure hunt. Of course, we didn't get to keep any of it for some reason. Somebody else got it, but you want to do that. I'll have a safe at home where I don't even keep it in the bank, so I can say, this is my money there, and this is just stuff I'm going to put aside for other things. I get money for, back when I was younger, nobody seems to want to do it anymore, but when I had a birthday or an anniversary, somebody, a grandparent or a parent would give you money, I just put it away. And then my wife or other people would say, how in the world did you do that? How did you take that trip? How did you buy that really nice thing? I said, well, the last 7 years, I just didn't spend the money I got from this and this and this. But now I got something really cool, and you could never do it. And what did you do? Oh, you went to Walmart 32 times. Cool, man. That's great. What do you have from that? Well, And so you want to be smart on those type of things there. Understand compounding. Realize what your time is worth. Estimate your hourly wage. You can divide your hourly wage out. If you say you have $50,000 a year. If you want to just real quickly figure out your hourly wage, if you're on a salary, take the 3 zeros off, divide by 2. That's going to be very close to what it is. If you make $50,000 a year, roughly you make about $25 an hour. It's not exact, but right around there, give you a good estimate. Take the 3 zeros off of it, divide it by 2, and you need to start realizing there are some things. I love to save money. I mean, I'm big into saving money, but there are certain things I'm not good at. God bless the session we had about changing the oil in Haiti and stuff, and that's exactly right. But if there's something like that, if it was building something in my house that I've got to decide if it's going to take me 6 days to figure it out and hurt myself and not know it, or I could pay somebody $30 to do it, it's nice to be able to have and keep your time if you can. Now, you're on the mission field, you may not have that opportunity, but you need to always be able to balance that out, time versus money. It's always a very, very important thing there. I'll just give you the last 2 points. I won't even get into the number. I have a number of other points, but I'll just give you a couple and let you have them. Pray about your purchases. Always pray about your purchases. Proverbs chapter 11, verse number 28. You will find this out. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. It just is. And very, very rarely, but this could be the 1 in a million chance. Well, great. Why don't you go put your whole life savings into the lottery and you could be the 1 in a million chance too. You don't want to do that. Be consistent on these things. Unless it's something I've been praying about for a long time and I have peace about, I don't purchase same day. It'll save you a lot of grief. Man, today's the day. If you buy it today, sorry, I'm your wrong customer. Why? Because I don't buy the same day. Why? Because I'm weird. Oh. And they just look at you. They don't know what to say. They say, well, yeah, but why would you do that? Well, it's just a decision I made between me and God. Oh, God's involved. What are they going to say? Forget God, man, buy my car. They don't do it. And use that as a buffer for yourself if you can. Next point here, we'll just skip the rest of this. Plan a retirement account. You can see me if you have any questions about that. It's wise to do that. I touched on it the other day. Your church, go back to. Talk to your deacons sometime. Be an encouragement. Something you want to do and step out. Say, I don't mean to be nosy, but does our pastor have a retirement account? One thing we've done in our churches is we have a key man policy. We take out a key man policy. If the pastor gets hit by a car, finds out he has cancer and dies, some churches, a third of the church may leave or whatever because people followed him or something may happen or maybe there's a crisis situation or maybe the pastor's left for a wrong reason. We'll keep $1 million, $2 million, whatever dollars on that to make sure and buffer for the church. It's the church's policy, not the pastor's. Make sure the pastor's taken care of. Make sure he has a retirement account. Don't let a man that's worthy of double honor serve God and go through more grief than people in any other job in America deal with and have nothing. That's just not right. And as a church and as members, we have that responsibility to take care of them. I was telling one of the guys there, we just recently, our senior pastor at our church just had his 40th anniversary. You guys okay back there? Praising the Lord, John? Okay. 40th anniversary. And we just sat down with the deacon and said, hey, he's not going to have another 40th anniversary. Let's do something nice for him. Let's take him, let's send him. I know he wanted to go on a cruise. He'd never do it with his own money. And so we just did it. We just sat down. We said, is there any reason we have a budget for it? No, not really. Well, let's look at spending about $10,000, send him on a nice cruise in a nice place with a nice hotel and great airfare and just take care of the whole thing and let's just take care of him. And that was a right thing to do. And there are we can't do that every year, and there are different milestones and stuff. But as a church, as those of us who serve on staff, we have a responsibility to take care of the man of God. Say, I'm just a single. No, you can do more than that. You can start something. When we were in Tennessee, it amazed me because I grew up that way. And the church, the pastor was celebrating his 20th anniversary, and I was in complete shock. There was nothing planned. Nothing. 20 years at one church. Brother Wallace is a very unique pastor. I don't know many pastors in the country now who have been in the same church for 36 years. As far as I know, at our church, our senior pastor has been there for 23 years. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere, but I've combed through the whole state. I don't know a pastor in the entire state of Colorado that's been in his church for 23 years or more. It's very unusual. And so when you're doing that, take care of the man of God. Deal with that. Make sure that you're doing it. You say, man, I'm just a single person. I was just a church member. I started a Sunday school class. We didn't have a big one at the time. And I just said, you know what? We're going to get something for the pastor. We're going to do something for him. And I did all my snooping around, see what he needed. And he was wanting some new leaf blowers and hedge trimmers and different things. And he didn't know we were asking about it. I got a list of about 12 to 15 things. I just went to the head deacon. I just said, hey, our class is going to do this just so you know. If anybody else wants to know, here's a list of other things. And man, all the other Sunday school classes, adults and stuff, they got excited about it. People gave money. And we just went up on that, and it probably wasn't as fancy and coordinated and organized as it should have been. We got up there, and when the pastor got up to dismiss, I just walked up behind him. And he says, you're dismissed. I said, no, you're not. Sit down. I said, Pastor, it's because of the event and the 20th anniversary, we just want to do something for you. It wasn't a big show. And people came up, and the church people were excited. I mean, they loved it, and they had stuff wrapped, and they came, we sang to them and stuff. First time ever. This man, Brother Gagliano, those of you know him, he's a very quiet man. He's not. He's a great guy. He loves you with all his heart, but he's not going to write you a note and say, "God bless you, dear brother. I love you. I'm praying for you today." That's just not his personality. The next day, he called 3 times. I was working in California, and he missed me. He kept calling over and over. And I finally caught up with him. He had a tear I could hear on his phone. He says, "Man," he says, "thank you so much for helping organize that." And I said, "Oh, it's no big deal. Just for," he says, "I've been here 20 years. Nobody's ever done that for me." And people have been using the excuse that, well, you know, he doesn't want us to get him anything. He wants us to put it towards the ministry. Well, that's great and spiritual and all, and put it towards the ministry, but that's a bunch of baloney too. You know, do something for the cause of Christ. Do something for God's man. It'll make a difference. We're no longer there, but you know, every year since then now, they take care of the pastor. You can be the person who does that. If you're a single, you can do that. If you're on staff somewhere, you can do that. You need to. You want your church to be blessed and be honored, you need to take care of that. You want to have money? The Bible says give it away. You want stuff to go well for you financially? You need to serve others and live for others. I don't understand, but that's what God says, and it works every single time. Last thing is open a savings account. You want to do that. Have a retirement account, many things along that line. There's just so many points I could get to that just didn't have time to today. I will tell you this: there are options for you. I don't do this, and I probably could if I wanted, but I don't. I can always connect you with somebody. One thing that I will do with money right now is I want to put it in something that's very safe. In the world we live in right now, it's changed a lot. Put it in something that is very safe. You can get a church bond. You can do something like that. 8%, 9%, you can make money in that. They're very, very strict on churches. People don't want to loan money to churches, so they've got to have 2.5 to 3 times liquidity. So even if the church goes under and the church falls apart, by the time they sell the buildings and take the money out of the bank, you're getting your money back anyways. Will Rogers said something very apropos. He said, "I'm not so concerned with the return on my investment as I am the return of my investment." Man, I'm gonna make 7%. Yeah, but are you gonna get your money back that you put into it? And so many things like that. So Stancil, I know I went over. Thank you, sir.